I first saw Rami Malek as Josh in a game called Until Dawn, and I'm surprised that he's casted as Elliot in Mr. Robot and end up nominating Emmys. Wow. Hey guys, what's up? And it's time for another review from a season from a TV show, and this time I'm gonna be reviewing Mr. Robot, Season 1. So there's the main character whose name is Elliot Alderson, and he's a part-time worker at a company called Allsafe, which is and he is a technician, and he's also a part-time hacker at night. And he was antisocial, clinically depressed, and he's a drug addict, but a very, very talented hacker indeed. First thing I love about Mr. Robot is the episode titles. And just the episode titles are very special itself. It's like The Mentalist, which has almost every episode title related to the color red. On Mr. Robot, every episode title is like a file name. EPS 1.0 underscore some letters hyphen dot something, and that's really creative. Second thing I really love about the episode, or the whole series in general, is the intro, the title sequence. There's actually no title sequence. It's just the text, the logo of Mr. Robot, just showing up in the screen for a couple of seconds and going away again. And that's really minimalistic, that's really straightforward, and I love it. The third thing I really love is the performance of Rami Malek and Christian Slater. Damn, they both steal the show. Oh my gosh. Rami Malek actually did an amazing performance as Elliot. His performance is so natural that I didn't even notice that he's actually acting. And Christian Slater is equally brilliant in the show. Man. Exciting times, kiddo. Exciting times. And although it's the pilot episode, there is action, there is character development, there are layers to the episode, and it's a great pilot episode. Not as great as Lost pilot episode or Breaking Bad pilot episode, but in my opinion, better than Mad Men and Game of Thrones pilot episode, because there's a lot of things going on in the pilot episode, and I love it. It's the beginning of the series. It's the very beginning, and it's already throwing in a lot of cool scenes about Elliot. No matter it's about his social life or his personal life. For instance, in the teaser, Elliot hacked an Indian guy and completely demolished him. And that's really impressive. But Mr. Robot have balls too. The first thing or person the show dissed is Steve Jobs. You know, Elliot always had voiceovers and narration throughout the whole series, and he's just first episode into the series, and he's already dissing like Josh Groban, Steve Jobs, Maroon 5, you know. It's and the Hunger Games, you know. And it's really cool. Although this episode is just the beginning, there's already things happening, like Mr. Robot, Mr. Robot is not the main character, by the way. Like, Mr. Robot inviting Elliot to hack into someone and take down someone. I won't spoil it. And then, at the end, it's really surprising. There's a plot twist towards the end, which I really, really enjoy. And so far, it's one of the most promising pilot episodes I've ever watched, and I love it. Moving on to episode 2, Ones and Zeros. And Tyrell Wellick wasn't really a problem on this episode, while Shayla's boyfriend is a problem. So Shayla is basically the provider of Elliot's drugs, and in the main storyline, Mr. Robot asked Elliot to blow a gas pipe, which is a very bad idea. More and more storylines was building up, and I love to see more Elliot and maybe a little bit less Allsafe storylines, because I guess the writers know that the people will get fed up of Allsafe storylines very soon. Honestly, episode 2 feels completely different than episode 1. It has less Angela, it has less All Safe, less Evil Corp, and more F Society and characters who are not not that frequently appeared in on episode 1. And I also like episode 2, especially Christian Slater's performance. And the ending is equally brilliant as last episode's ending. Moving on to episode 3, Debug. The first scene was stunning. It was a close-up of Tyrell Wellick and he was like practicing a speech or something. And every time he screws up, he slaps himself in the face. And that's very tense. And then Tyrell Wellick, yeah, he went into some trouble and he didn't get what he wants and he just went crazy. He went insane. That's why the character of Tyrell Wellick is getting more and more unpredictable and interesting. And also, suddenly, all of a sudden, Elliot thought F Society was over and he was trying to live a happy and peaceful life. Nothing too important happened on this episode, but it's still pretty decent. Moving on to episode 4, Damons. They still hadn't get the plan working, the Steel Mountain plan, but at least they tried. Elliot took his last line of morphine, and a few days later, the F Society will be going on to a mission, and because Elliot didn't take any drugs, he became very sick and paranoid. I love the scene where Elliot wears the F Society mask and suddenly goes into a bunch of weird hallucinations and dreams, like the talking fish, the raspberry pie, the Tyrell Wellick statue with the key. Like, I really love these hallucination montages. I feel like they're very confusing, but in a very entertaining way, which I love a lot. You know, a lot of people screw up these hallucination scenes because it's just too overdone and pretentious. But the hallucinations in Mr. Robot is very artistic and brilliant. So moving on to episode 5, Exploits. Now I'm actually pretty hooked on the show. I really think diving deep into Elliot's mindset is the way to go for a story like this, because we really need to be in Elliot's shoes to understand the situation. So we are actually playing Elliot in the show. Again, I don't want to say this too much, but Christian Slater and Rami Malek, they are amazing on this episode. The entire episode is mostly about Elliot and Steel Mountain trying to hack into something and, doing his job, blah, blah, blah. And it's not easy, not at all. There were obstacles. There were obstacles that were especially challenging for someone antisocial like Elliot himself. And at the end of the episode, a character either did something new, got a new job, or moved into a new apartment. So far, so good. Then it's episode 6, Brave Traveler. This episode, oh my gosh, it's full of twists and turns and surprises. But because I'm dealing with plot twists here, I have to give a spoiler alert. But basically, before you skip the spoilers, I just want to say that this episode is surprisingly intense and full of thrilling moments that I never expected. So, spoiler alert. Right from the beginning, Vera already knew where's Elliot and Shayla. Vera was Shayla's boyfriend. When Elliot and Shayla was eating in a restaurant, suddenly some random guys just took Shayla away and brought Elliot back to his apartment. These random guys wanted Elliot to break Vera free, who was in jail. And Darlene, Angela, and Mr. Robot also came by and tried to talk to Elliot, but Elliot was occupied. Then they decided to go to the jail to talk to Vera first before they break him out, and started to hack into the jail's network. And Elliot started talking about fight or flight, which is a very good topic, but he didn't answer this time. When he talked to Vera, he said he'll break him out but he can disable the operation, which makes Vera lose all of his money. So I am actually pretty glad that Elliot took a stand for himself in the episode. And later, even more surprises. Elliot realized Isaac, which is Vera's brother, or I think, as I recall. Elliot realized Isaac wanted to kill Vera all along after Elliot helped Vera break out of the jail. And at the end, Vera killed Isaac. And suddenly, Elliot also realized that Shayla's dead body was in his car all along. And that was very heartbreaking and horrifying, to be honest. Over to episode 7, View Source. After that tragic event that took place last episode, we continue on to Elliot's personal life after a month. But the point of this episode is basically Angela trying to sue Terrence Colby from E-Corp. Not much happened on this episode, but of course Mr. Robot was trying to reform the team, the F Society hacker team. And yeah, there's a lot of grieving and sad moments on this episode too, including Elliot talking to the shrink. Then it's episode 8, White Rose, which scored the highest on IMDb in the season with a 9.5. So you know who's White Rose, the infamous leader of the Chinese hacker team Dark Army. You may think it's a super tough big guy with a scary mask and a chainsaw, but no. When you see White Rose, you'll be shocked, and it's not how you expect it. And that, my friend, is a perfect introduction with a perfect personality for a classic TV villain. Like Gus Fring, Joffrey Baratheon, even Joker. Now we have White Rose, which wasn't a villain yet, but would be, I have a feeling. And the ending was a huge plot twist, like The Usual Suspect. It was insane. So I'm going to talk about it, and spoiler alert. So, actually, I'm sure everyone who doesn't watch the show already knows that Mr. Robot was actually Elliot's father. I knew it before I watched the show, so the twist is kind of spoiled. But, yeah, it's another I am your father twist. It's like Sam Esmail just ripped off Star Wars, but it's still quite original. But I didn't see the sister twist coming. Oh my gosh, like, I never thought Darlene was actually Elliot's sister, so what a surprise. On to episode 9, Mirroring. Honestly, this is really, truly the game-changing episode of the season. After the insane twist last episode, you may think this episode is all about cleaning up, wrapping up, or going to new directions. But there's more. There's even more plot twists and new storylines coming up. This episode is really fast-paced, which made the episode quite entertaining. But still, it's confusing. It takes time to digest, which also means it's entertaining as hell. It's great to see things in the shoes of Elliot, because when the twists happen, we were with Elliot the whole time, and we had no ideas it's coming. But it's coming. And the ending was unlike any other previous Mr. Robot ending. It's a bit more peaceful, independent, and less worrying. And gotta mention that Rami Malek on this episode is more amazing than any other Mr. Robot episodes. And I'm giving a spoiler alert. Whoop! So, you know, last episode we realized that Mr. Robot was actually Elliot's father, and this time we realized that he wasn't even real. He was just a hallucination of Elliot. We totally didn't see these twists coming because we were with Elliot since the pilot episode, so we'll watch back and find the clues and see how Mr. Robot is actually his father. This episode, we totally didn't see the twist coming too, because we were in Elliot's mind all along, and we didn't know he's actually just a segment of imagination. So, we'll go back from the pilot episode, and we'll and we will rewatch the entire series knowing that Mr. Robot wasn't even real. Genius. And it's also really crazy how Mr. Robot and Elliot is the same person and they constantly switch roles. So that's pretty crazy. And at the end is episode 10, Zero Day, or simply the grand finale to Mr. Robot season 1. And the entire episode is full of spoilers, so for your own good, spoiler alert. Elliot woke up 3 days later and everything had changed. The program was executed. Angela worked for E-Corp, and Allsafe was dying, and Tyrell Wellick was missing. Nothing was going right. Wow, like, this is one of the most intriguing things, because I've never had an amnesia in my life, but Elliot had an amnesia, and we were in Elliot's shoes, so I was actually really curious on what the hell happened during these 3 days. Elliot didn't know what to do. He just went to everywhere to search for clues, but no one know where is Tyrell Wellick. But now he knew Mr. Robot is fake, so he was kinda controlling Mr. Robot. That's why this episode is unlike any other Mr. Robot episodes, because it's not only because it's really confusing and otherworldly, you begin to question if anything is real or not. It's dramatic, it's strange, and unexpected, and unexplainable also. But this is certainly a grand finale to the season, and I think this finale is really good and really underrated. There's a lot of crazy and strange things that happen on the finale, including the cafe scene where Mr. Robot strangled Elliot, but it was actually Elliot strangling over himself. And I really love the last scene where there were a lot of protesters wearing F Society's masks, and turns out they weren't even real. And at the end, Elliot was alone, standing in the middle of a huge, square, plaza place, and he looked up, and this billboard, and Mr. Robot was inside the billboard. And this is very surrealistic and very artistic at the same time, so I actually really love the style. And also the episode ended in a very peaceful way, which is very odd for Elliot, because usually the show is very chaotic and dirty and dark and depressing, but at the end of the episode, it feels kind of like a false sense of comfort. But it's just very peaceful as Alabama Shake's Sound and Color played. And, wow. Just wow. By the way, if you're wondering, Joanna Wellick said to Elliot in Danish, quote, "If you do anything to him, I will kill you," quote. If you're, curious, I looked it up for you. And also, it's weird when there's music and it suddenly stopped in the middle of a scene. It may feel like bad editing, but it's intentional, and it is artistic. So the finale of the season is unlike any other episodes in the season. It's otherworldly and it's transcendent. It's like Elliot transforming to another person. And the entire series itself, although it's not super fast-paced, although it is not action-packed, although there is not much death scenes or brutal scenes, but there are a lot of plot twists and a lot of mind-bending and twisting scenes which really messed with our minds, really fucked with our minds, and I love those scenes. Man, the characters are compelling and the acting performances are amazing. We get to be in Elliot's shoes the whole time because Elliot was narrating the whole time, and I really like the concept, the style, the idea. Sam Esmail's style is really artistic and ingenious because of the minimalistic, straightforward, anti-art Dadaist style that the show has. And the ending, the post-credit scenes of the finale was equally mind-blowing. The finale left us with many questions, and maybe we'll know the answers next season, maybe we won't. But Also, I want to point out that the original soundtrack by Mac Quayle, I think, as I recall, was amazing. Especially tracks like "Fuck Society" and "Better Than Morphine." So at last, the worst episode is episode 3, Debug, and the best is episode 8, White Rose. I'm gonna give Mr. Robot a 9 out of 10, and I'm saying Mr. Robot is mind-blowing. Yeah. So, have you watched Mr. Robot Season 1? From 1 to 10, how much would you rate it? Like if you like and subscribe if you want more.